on Dove TV 250. Today I come up with a brand new technology where we are going to discuss about refrigeration components. Please hit subscribe to Dove TV 250, like, share and comment so that this lesson can reach to many people who are interested in this world of technology. Let's see all the components of refrigerator. This is the topic of today. Here we go. Let's get started. This is the refrigerator, as you see, where we have the product to be cooled. We have here drinks, and also have some food here to be maintained at the required temperature. And also this direction indicates the removal of heat. As we know, this is inside the fridge where heat has to be removed from these drinks, and here this heat has to be removed by the refrigerant which are circulating around the evaporator pipe, so as removing heat from the evaporator up to the surrounding. Let's now continue by looking some of the definition. There is a similarities between air conditioning and refrigeration. For air conditioning is a system for controlling the humidity, ventilation and temperature in a building or in a vehicle, typically to maintain a cool atmosphere in warm conditions. In the winter, air condition use heat pump. During the winter, air condition use heat pump to provide heating condition in the building. For refrigeration is the process of keeping an item, below room temperature by storing the item in the system or substance designed to cool or freeze. I think these definitions are very well understood to everyone. By starting from the main components of air conditioning and refrigeration system, basically we have four basic parts. There are four basic parts in the mechanical refrigeration system. The main one we have compressor, condenser, expansion device and evaporator. These are the main one. If you have these four, you can have a refrigerator. But for making sure that you have all the cooling required, you have to add some of the components in order to make sure that anytime you need the cooling, it will be provided as you wish. That is why we add more than this one in order to have a comfort air conditioning and refrigeration. As you see, by connecting such components, this is refrigeration machinery. As we know that the main heart of this refrigeration machinery is compressor. Compressor allow refrigerant to circulate in the system by compressing refrigerant from compressor at the high temperature and the high pressure to the condenser, and then condenser condense the liquid refrigerant, and also during the condensation there is the level of heat. Here, as you see, we have a fan here which will blow out heat from this condenser for the purpose of providing cooling, or the purpose of activating the cooling effects. And then from condenser to receiver. In receiver, it is where we can store liquid refrigerant in the system, and then from receiver to filter dryer, from filter dryer to Cytoglass. By looking on Cytoglass, you can see that there is a flow of refrigerant, and then from Cytoglass to solenoid valve, and then from this valve to expansion, from this expansion to evaporator, where the cooling effect takes place, and then from this evaporator to accumulator. For the purpose of accumulator is to separate or to prevent liquid refrigerant to enter in the compressor by separating liquid or any kind of moisture before entering in the compressor. Here, as you see, we have summary of what I have said on that diagram above. As you see here, we have compressor which compress refrigerant to condenser, and then from condenser to expansion, as you see here, expansion device, and from expansion to evaporator, and from evaporator back to compressor, hence completing the circuit. By looking on the one of the main components, and also the one of the equipments for refrigeration and most of the time for air conditioning, let's first start with compressor. As you see here, this is the compressor. We have many type of compressor, but some of them are this one, as you see here, and we will have time for discussing most of the compressor. Compressor, as we know, has the discharge pipe, and also for suction pipe, also has the connection points which is inserted here, and also on the compressor there is the mark, or there is indicator which shows that this compressor use this refrigerant. This compressor is connected on the AC or DC machine, and also some of the information which help the user to use this compressor in a good condition. The purpose of the compressor is to circulate the refrigerant in the system under pressure. At the compressor, the low pressure gas is charged to high pressure gas. That is what we can say on compressor. The condenser, this is the next components, which is one of the main components, is the condenser. The condenser releases heat from the refrigerant, similar to a vehicle's radiator, releasing heat from the cooling system and convert that refrigerant into liquid state. As you see, this is condenser, and also this is a condenser, as you see, and also this is a condenser. Condensers are constructed in different ways, and also we have the time for discussing one of the types of condenser. But as you see here, there is some of the examples of such condenser, and what you have to know is that the condenser is constructed in different ways, and we will have time for discussing such type of condenser. After condenser, we have what we call expansion devices. The refrigerant flow control. This expansion control the flow of refrigerant. The refrigerant control reduce the pressure and release liquid refrigerant into evaporator when it is needed. This is the function of the expansion device. Also, expansion devices are designed in different ways. Some of the type of expansion device, we have what we call thermostatic expansion device. We have electronic expansion device. We have what we call capillary tube, and also, as I said, you have also TXV, which is thermostatic expansion valve. Also, this is the image of the thermostatic expansion valve, and also has its main features, where we have here the sensor, the sensing bulb, here we have the outlet, where we have inlet here, where we have a closing port here. I also have superheat adjuster cap, and after that we have here the evaporator or heat exchanger as you see. Its main function is that the evaporator is the part that absorbs heat in the process and allow the refrigerant to evaporate from the liquid. Listen this carefully. The evaporator is the part that absorbs heat in the process and allow the refrigerant to evaporate from liquid to gas. During the construction of evaporator, it has some similarity with condenser, but as you see, this is one of the examples of evaporators. We have other components. Such components discussed above are the main one, but also our system should have other components which we are going to see on these videos. As here we are going to start with receiver. Liquid receiver are used to store the liquid refrigerant after it leaves the condenser. The purpose of receiver is to store liquid refrigerant after it leaves the condenser. It should be located below the condenser to enable natural flow. The receiver may be constructed either vertically or horizontally and should have sufficient capacity to hold the entire system's refrigerant charge. This is receiver, as you see here. After we have filter dryer are designed in this way. Any moisture or impurities that exist in the refrigerant have a variety of negative impact on the compressor. Any moisture or impurities that exist in the refrigerant have a variety of negative impact on the refrigerator. Then the filter dryer removes moisture or impurities. This is the main function of filter. Filter removes moisture or impurities. Do you understand this? It is installed between the expansion valve and the receiver. It is installed between the expansion valve and the receiver. Here also we have what we call electronic valve. This is electronic valve. As you see its construction. In electronic valve we have solenoid valve, and also we have other valves which are not listed here. Solenoid valve is a coil of the insulated wired around the solid or hollow shape made up of iron or steel or any other ferromagnetic material. Its function: the solenoid valve is used to control the flow of gas. This is the main function of the solenoid valve. The solenoid valve is used to control the flow of gas called as fluids in the pipeline or in the certain process. The solenoid valve is electromechanical valve comprising of the solenoid coil and plunger which is connected to the stem of the valve. That is solenoid valve, which is electronically valve. As you see on this slide, liquid separator separate the refrigerant. That is the function of these components. Separate the liquid refrigerant from the absorbed refrigerant gas. When the refrigerant, liquid and gas are mixed, and transfer only gas to the compressor. Separate liquid which has mixed with gas, and then after separation it only transfer the gas to the compressor, as we know that liquid refrigerant is not compressor friendly. We need only gas to the compressor, and also we know that liquid refrigerant are not compressible. That is why we don't need liquid refrigerant. So to have the safe system, we need to have this liquid separator in our system in order to prevent our compressor. Then it prevents the liquid compression and protect the compressor. It is mounted between the evaporator outlet. At the evaporator outlet, it is where you mount this liquid separator and the compressor. Moreover, it prevents the disturbance of liquid in the evaporator. Those are the function of liquid separator. After liquid separator, Here also we have accumulator. By construction, you see that it looks similar in construction, but physically, but there is some dissimilarities. A suction accumulator is used to prevent liquid refrigerant flood back to the compressor. As you understand, this function is not the same as the liquid separator as we have seen above. Accumulators are commonly used on heat pump, transport refrigeration systems, low temperature supermarket refrigeration systems, and in any situation where liquid refrigerant is a concern. This is where you use accumulator. After accumulator, we have also Cytoglass. Cytoglass, as you see, there is a glass here and here. As the name implies, we have sight from vision and glass from the word transparent. The Cytoglass checks the dryness of refrigerant and filling of appropriate refrigerant in the condenser side among the liquid ducts of the refrigerator by the change of color. It checks the dryness. It is where checking of dryness of the refrigerant is done. After we have high or low pressure gauge. High or low pressure gauge. For safe refrigeration system and the one mainly used in this modern technology must have this gauge to indicate how is or what is going on in the system, to indicate how pressure of the refrigerant in the system for low and high side of the system. The pressure gauge are divided into high pressure and low pressure gauge. The high pressure gauge are generally displays the scale from 1 to 30 kg per centimeter square. The low pressure gauge has the scale from 30 inch Hg.V 2 kg per centimeter square. Moreover, the temperature scale corresponds to the pressure by the refrigerant type. Example, R22, R134A, etc. are provided. After high and low pressure gauge, let's now see high and low pressure switch. Those are switches. Switches for the system. Let's start with high pressure switch. The high pressure switch open its contact point when high pressure rapidly goes up or the compressor output gas pressure is dramatically increased. Understand this. The high pressure switch HPS open its contact point when the high pressure rapidly goes up, or the compressor output gas pressure is dramatically increased. The low pressure switch LPS open the contact point when the low pressure drops. If the pressure point drops, it open the contacts. If the pressure drops. Open the contact point when the low pressure drops below the setting value. When the pressure drops below the setting value, it opens the contact point during the operation of the refrigeration training equipment. As you understand, these high and low pressure switch are also important in our system. So those are one of the main components and equipments used in refrigeration and air conditioning. So let's now see this, and I'm sure that you have got any new knowledge, you have learned something very interesting to you, which can help you to learn, which can help you to improve the knowledge about refrigeration and air conditioning. So if you learn something, let me know in the comment.